Without further ado, I would now request His Excellency Mr. Nasir Ahmed, Minister of Environment, Sri Lanka, for the ministerial address. The floor is yours, sir.
Distinguished Chairperson, distinguished speakers and panelists, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. It is my great honor and privilege to be invited to address this prestigious summit in its 22nd version. I must, at the outset, congratulate Terry for their over 2 decades of mission and the immense contribution to the body of knowledge of sustainable development and transforming the summit into a global standards and reputation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the world is at crucial juncture. The global economy is showing all signs of a recession. Extreme climate events have started adding fuel to fire, aggravating the problems faced by the mankind than ever before. We have dissociated ourselves with nature. The unprecedented destruction of the environment, camouflaged under the name of development, is paying the price. We all are responsible parties for this, and more importantly, we all are victims. Shifting weather patterns as a result of climate change, affecting rainfall and temperature, are likely to impact the ecosystem goods and services such as clean water and food on which people rely. Though communities have been adapting to climate variability for centuries, their coping mechanisms as at present have been outpaced by the fast changing climate. Ecosystem can mitigate the impacts of natural hazards and make a valuable contribution to human resilience. Ecosystem degradation and the loss of ecosystem services due to climate change and other stresses directly affect people's livelihoods and well-being, while further increasing their vulnerability to climate change. We need to revisit the strategies used in the current development pathway. There is no way that we continue ourselves to business as usual scenario. Finding and adopting nature-based solutions is now being realized as a better development approach, considering management, conservation, and enhancement of natural resources. These are important pillars of development that will yield multiple environmental, social, and economical benefits and co-benefits, including food security and climate change. My country, Sri Lanka, is fully geared towards fulfilling targets set by the nationally determined contributions in 6 mitigation sectors and 9 adaptation sectors by 2030. Under the leadership of His Excellency the President Ranil Wickremesinghe, Sri Lanka is also targeting and developing a roadmap to be carbon neutral by 2050. With the commitments of the country to be in a green growth pathway, the nature-based solution will be the key to address many environmental related issues, including climate change and food security. I am happy to note that the NBS is also increasingly being recognized by government, donors, and academia as an effective approach to adaptation, which also provides considerable co-benefits relating to climate change mitigation and conservation of biodiversity. The NBS is considered as one of the significant approaches to assist communities in adapting to climate change. The NBS span many activities and adaptation outcomes, including mangrove restoration to buffer against storm surges, watershed management to protect against droughts and floods, rangeland ecosystem management to prevent desertification, and sustainable management of fisheries and forestry resources to alleviate threats on food security. Furthermore, NBS can be effectively be utilized as integral to adaptation strategies at global, national, and local levels to achieve the sustainable development goals, reach global biodiversity targets, and effectively address climate change. There are, however, various gaps in our knowledge and understanding of the implementation of NBS, which indicates that the information of success and failures in NBS in climate adaptation needs careful documentation. The integration of NBS into policy frameworks is gradually emerging, including in Sri Lanka. However, we must admit that further support is required to bring this line of thinking at the policy level in countries both at adaptation and mitigation segments, in new policy formulation or updating existing policies. Mainstreaming NBS at national level indicates that the relevant aspects will be considered in key climate change and development policy instruments and budget allocations across different governance levels. Developing countries like Sri Lanka, with the support of NGOs and INGOs and participation of national and foreign experts, have successfully embarked on community level planning in implementation of the development projects using NBS. Such community participation is a requirement for sustenance of projects and community involvement to ensure ownership and shared benefits. Distinguished guests, the NBS approaches have been outlined to better manage ecosystem for food security given the climate change, including managing soil, improving agricultural biodiversity, using local and scientific knowledge, providing farmers with better access to new technologies, and establishing payment for ecosystem services schemes. Finally, I must reiterate that agriculture and livelihood of people in steep lands of South Asia is vulnerable to climate change and adaptation measures. Use of NBS are required to sustain land's prosperity, to reduce vulnerability, and to enhance the resilience of the agricultural system to climate change. Sri Lanka's philosophical heritage, enriched by the teaching of Buddha, has always encouraged us to balance ecological concerns with human needs. Human must be in sync with nature rather than work against it. We understand that confronting the triple plenary crisis requires a more resilient approach to producing, processing, marketing, consuming, and disposing of goods that originate from agriculture, forestry, or fisheries. And that is why we are all here today to learn from the best practices across the world. And in that regard, Sri Lanka look forward to work together towards a global food system with sustainability and resilience at its core. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We greatly value your encouraging presence and for your valuable remarks.